What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about The Invitation. Directed by Jessica M. Thompson, who wrote this film alongside Blair Butler. This is a brand new PG-13 vampire film that just released that stars people like Nathalie, Emmanuel, Thomas Doherty, Hugh Skinner, Alana, Boden, and so many others, and has really great cinematography from Autumn Eakin. And the basic premise here is a woman who has lost her mother and father finally finds long-lost family that she's always wanted. It just turns out that they're vampires. What's going on, everybody? If you're new to the channel, my name is Anthony, and here on my channel I talk about all things movies, TV. I do a bunch of Star Wars content, some Marvel content, cover what a lot of other people already cover, but ultimately I talk about all things movies here on the channel. So if you're a big fan of that kind of stuff, and if you enjoy this video, I want to welcome you to hit that subscribe button and join me here on my journey to cover as many movies as I possibly can before I die. And for anybody who's returning to the channel, a big thanks to you for once again coming back to see my ugly face talk about movies. The Invitation is a new movie that just came out. I just got home from seeing this in my local AMC, and I'm happy to say I enjoyed the film overall. I will say, though, that if you've seen the trailers for this movie, it completely and utterly ruins the entire movie, and ultimately, I think, takes away from my overall viewpoint on this movie. I saw this movie with my fiance, who also saw multiple trailers for this film, and with my buddy Caleb, who had not seen any trailers for this film, so he actually got to have a bit of a different experience and seemed to have enjoyed it a little bit more than I did, simply because he was able to go into it 110% blind. With that said, if you have not seen any trailers and you want to go into this movie blind, just knowing that it is a vampire film, I recommend just skipping away from this review and coming back whenever you've actually seen the movie. But if you're somebody who has seen the marketing or doesn't really care and just wants to know what this movie is about, then stick around as I'm going to talk about The Invitation. Now, the basic premise of this film, as I mentioned in the intro, is that you have a young woman in this film named Evie, played by Nathalie Emmanuel, and her mother and father have passed away, and she's kind of alone. Doesn't have a lot of friends or family in her life, specifically family. She has no longer any family in her life, and she ends up doing one of those ancestry DNA type things, which ends up connecting her with a whole line of people that she didn't even know were part of her family. She ends up connecting with one of them, and they end up bringing her out to this wedding saying, hey, there's all this family that you don't know that wants to have you be a part of our lives, and we're just so excited to have somebody else in our family that we randomly kind of uncovered. And so she, seeking family, ends up going out there, finding out later on that this is actually a family of vampires, and she's part of a ritual of sorts. I'll leave it at that in case you've seen the premise and you don't really know too much about it, or you just don't want me to dive any deeper. The basic premise is a woman goes out to meet her new family, and they turn out to be vampires, and things start to go a little bit crazy. A part of this film kind of reminded me of the film that came out a couple of years ago, Ready or Not. I will say I liked Ready or Not substantially more than this film, but there was an element about this film that kind of was similar to me. And overall, going into this movie, I was really into it because I'm a huge fan of vampire movies. I haven't covered a whole lot of vampire movies here on the channel, but I have covered a few here on the channel that I have enjoyed, like the original Blade with Wesley Snipes, as well as things like the 1931 Bela Lugosi Dracula film, and things like the original Fright Night as well. So, it goes to say that I love the horror genre. If you've been watching this channel, it's one of the things I've covered the most on this channel, and specifically vampires is definitely one of my favorite subgenres of the horror genre overall. So going into this, I was definitely looking forward to it. I was going to see this, or I was going to see the new George Miller film with Idris Elba and Tilda Swinton, and something about the vampire element of it is what pulled me towards this one more so. And overall, what I can say is I found this film to be a very cliche, predictable vampire movie. There really isn't a lot here that really blew my mind or really is going to be overly memorable when I think about this film in the future. As a movie in and of itself, though, I found it to be enjoyable. I didn't hate it. I didn't dislike it. I found that the cinematography was pretty solid from beginning to end. I really enjoyed the way that this film looked. Outside of a quick moment near the end where there's some CGI fire, overall, the visuals of this film I thought were really solid, since most of it does utilize practical effects and really great camera work to really, encapsulate over this very Halloween-y kind of feel and vibe. That was definitely one of my favorite elements about this film is, I think this is like the first film I've seen in theaters this year that definitely had a Halloween-y vibe leading into October. Obviously, we still have a little bit more till Halloween, but, we're starting to ramp up into that season. And overall, I think this was the first film that I saw this year in theaters that very much felt Halloween-y at times in terms of its tone, its music, and the locations that they shot on, which did increase my enjoyment of the film as a fan of Halloween. Overall, this film for me was just a little bit generic. There was a lot about this film that I did enjoy. Like I mentioned, I enjoyed the visuals, I enjoyed the performances, the music, and everything that kind of made this film, just visually enticing to watch. But beyond that, I found the story and the characters in a lot of ways to be pretty one-note and cliche. When it comes to the horror element of this film, since it is PG-13, there was only so far they can go. And for a vampire film in a world of crazy vampire films, the fact that it was PG-13 did hold it back from ever really going over the top. I never really found that this film had too many big over-the-top vampire bloody moments. It's not really going for that with this film, but it doesn't really have a lot of that as well. So that was a little bit disappointing. This is not going to be a blood-gushing good vampire time, in my general opinion. I found it to be just a cookie-cutter, straightforward vampire film with a straightforward premise that you can enjoy enough while you're watching it, but not something I'm necessarily rushing to rewatch. And like I mentioned before, I find that the actual trailers took away from my overall experience of this movie because I found the movie to just be very cliche, very straightforward, and very predictable. And a lot of that has to do with the marketing, pretty much laying out the entirety of the premise here, even a moment in the film where our character is running seeking help and that those people that she seeks help from actually end up betraying her. That's in the trailer. And for me, that was such a negative while watching it. I just felt like I was seeing all the moments of the trailer play out throughout the course of the movie, and it never really felt like there was any twist or turns or surprises. Now, I did mention before that I did see the film with my buddy Caleb, who had not seen any of the marketing, and so he had no idea what was going on, and when some of the twists and turns did happen for him, he was a little bit more engaged in this moment. So I do recognize that this is a movie that maybe 4, 5, 6 years down the line, random people come across it on Netflix and end up checking it out. They may end up enjoying it a little bit more. They may end up being a little bit more enticed by the story here because they didn't see all the marketing leading up to it, whereas I've seen this trailer for this movie for months and months and months up to this point, having gone to see a movie every week for the last forever. So it might sound like I don't like The Invitation, but ultimately what I can really say about this film is that I just found it to be a bit generic and predictable at times. And when it comes to the horror element, I enjoyed a lot about the imagery, but when it comes down to the actual scary element of the film, I didn't really find the film to be creepy or scary all that much. It just utilizes a lot of horror imagery and gothic imagery to kind of give you this Halloween-y vibe, and a lot of the actual scares in the film are unfortunately relegated to things like jump scares, loud noises, and things like that kind of have some sort of abrupt moment of visuals or sound that get everybody to just have the classic jump scare kind of jolt. And ultimately, that didn't really work for me. I found this movie to just be, all right, it's not something I'm running to see again, but I didn't hate my time in the theater. I think if you go see this movie and you're a fan of horror or vampires, you'll probably just enjoy it fine enough. But if you're a long-time big fan of the vampire genre and you're looking for something that's going to change the game, then this is definitely not going to be that movie. I would ultimately suggest that this is a movie you wait to see on streaming. I don't think this is anything that you need to rush and pay your hard-earned dollars for to go see in a theater. I only say that because of the movies that are already in theaters right now. I think there's other better movies to go see in theaters right now, whereas The Invitation for me was a run-of-the-mill vampire horror film that's leading us into this era or this season of horror movies leading into Halloween. And, it works fine enough on that level. I enjoyed it while watching it, but I can't say I'm running to watch it again. So a big thanks to you guys for watching. Definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. Did you love this movie? Did you not like this movie? What did you like about it? And what did you not like about it? Definitely want to hear all and any of those things down below. So big thanks again for you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.